Finally, it was Friday. Hajin arrived at Suwon Station, where Suho was already waiting for him. Hajin asked where they were headed, but Suho only told him to follow. They soon reached the base of the Gamak Mountains and began climbing toward the summit. After a while, Hajin started wondering how long they had been hiking. The Gamak Mountains were a dangerous place as they bordered the Forbidden Zone. Hajin kept a close eye on their surroundings until they arrived at the dungeon entrance. Hajin remarked this is definitely a tough place to find, even if you know the location, noting how narrow the passageway was. Suho warned him that once they entered, it would be hard to escape, and asked if Hajin was ready for that. With a confident smile, Hajin replied, "Of course." He pulled out his Desert Eagle, adding, "This is pretty strong." Just in case, Hajin had used SP to craft some light bullets, but given the high intermediate grade of the boss monster, they would only buy them a little time. Even so, he wasn't worried. He trusted Suho to handle the rest. Hajin then extended his hand, telling Suho to grab it. Suho looked confused and asked why they needed to hold hands. Hajin explained that using a flashlight might attract aggro from spirit monsters. Understanding the situation, Suho agreed and grabbed Hajin's hand. As they cautiously walked through the dark, Suho couldn't help but feel spooked by the eerie atmosphere. Suddenly, Hajin noticed something unusual and told Suho to stop. He saw another passageway on the other side, one that wasn't supposed to be part of this dungeon's design. Using his thousand-mile eyes, Hajin looked further ahead and saw a group of people walking toward them. Suho asked, "What's going on?" Hajin quickly signaled for him to stay quiet. Listening carefully, Hajin overheard one of the strangers asking where they were, while another speculated that this might be a hidden stage of the dungeon. Although he didn't recognize them, Hajin could tell from their energy that they were definitely demonic humans. At that moment, Hajin received a message from the co-author. The size of the Gamak Mountain dungeon was too small compared to the reward. The solution? This dungeon and Suwon's Den of Devil's dungeon were now linked together, forming a hidden stage. Hajin was shocked. Suwon's Den of Devils was a completely separate dungeon, but now it would be connected to this one. Hajin asked what's the date today. Suho replied on August 14th. Hajin's heart sank. He realized they were in serious trouble. Today was the day that the Guild of Demonic Humans, the Masked Demon Master, was raiding Suwon's Den of Devil's dungeon. That meant the group ahead of them belonged to the Masked Demon Master, one of the strongest demonic human organizations. Each member operated under fake hero identities, and all of them were at least intermediate grade or higher. Taking them down wouldn't be easy, even for Suho. Frustrated, Hajin thought to himself, why did it have to be today? Suho, noticing Hajin's concern, asked, "What's happening?" Hajin replied, "There are people on the other side." He listened closely as one of the demonic humans suggested they return to the main squad, fearing they might be accused of stealing something. The other agreed, and they started heading back. Hajin breathed a sigh of relief. He knew they had to clear the dungeon while the demonic humans were gone. Activating the mana of Stigma, Hajin used his farsight to locate the boss room. He found the path, but there was a riddle on the door. Hajin instructed Suho they need to go forward, then turn left twice. That'll lead them to the boss room. But they needed to be quick. On the other side of Suwon's Den of Devils, the main group of the Masked Demon Master Guild was resting. The guild leader, Kim Jin-young, asked James and Johan if they had discovered anything. They confirmed the presence of a hidden stage and informed him they were on their way back, so the entire group could proceed together. However, the guild leader ordered them to continue searching ahead and not return. Kim Jin-young then addressed the rest of the group, announcing that their two members had found a hidden stage and it was time for everyone to get up and head there. As they prepared to move, one of the members was quietly speaking to someone, noting the absence of two people. Suddenly, he opened a portal. The guild leader, surprised, demanded to know why he opened an artificial portal. When the member ignored him, the guild leader became furious, ordering him to close the portal immediately. But his words were met with silence. As he approached the member in anger, a dark purple beam shot from the portal, blowing the guild leader's head off. The rest of the guild was horrified. From the portal, the captain of the chameleon troop emerged. With a swift spell, she put the entire group to sleep. Deciding to spare their lives for the sake of her stock, she refrained from further harm. One of her subordinates asked if they should proceed to the hidden stage, but the captain told him to stand by. When he inquired if an unexpected variable had appeared, she explained that there were already two people in the hidden stage, candidates. He realized that this would be a test to see if they were worthy of joining the chameleon troop. The captain then used her ability to transform into a slime-like substance. Meanwhile, back in the hidden stage, ghouls, which were lower intermediate level monsters, began appearing. Hajin quickly shot down one. There were many of them, but Hajin eliminated them with ease. Suho, impressed, marveled at how Hajin managed to take them down so efficiently, even in the darkness. As more ghouls appeared, the two of them worked together to defeat them. After the battle, Suho found the entrance to the boss room and called Hajin over. On the wall was a riddle carved into the stone. This and that are together. If you look with fresh eyes, this and that exist at the same time. One looks far away, and your eyes might be disillusioned. What is this? Suho appeared confused. In the original story, Suho couldn't solve this riddle and had to ask Yuna for help. She, in turn, asked the Intelligence Guild for the solution. It had taken them about 10 minutes to figure it out. But now, with little time to spare, Hajin answered confidently, lightning. The text on the wall disappeared, and the ground started shaking as the wall slowly opened. Suho, surprised, asked, was the answer really lightning? Hajin had seen it randomly elsewhere and incorporated it into the novel. In the riddle, this refers to lightning, and that refers to thunder. Lightning and thunder are always together, but because sound is slower than light, thunder is heard after lightning, depending on how far away you are. Suho was impressed by Hajin's cleverness, seeing him in a new light. They were ready to enter the boss room. From afar, the captain of the chameleon troop observed them as they stepped inside. She realized that Hajin was on a completely different level than the other cadets. His judgment, quick thinking, and boldness were outstanding, and his mind was exceptional. Despite this being a hidden stage, he had managed to navigate it on his own in just 10 minutes. Satisfied with what she saw, she decided that she would recruit Hajin into the chameleon troop. However, one thing bothered her. Would he be able to kill without hesitation? She noticed 2 demonic humans from the Masked Demon Master Guild nearby and decided to test him with these 2. Inside the boss room, skulls and bones were scattered everywhere, and the boss, the swordsman of distraction, sat on a throne. His eyes were closed, but the moment he sensed their presence, he opened them. Suho felt a chill run down his spine, and suddenly, the boss was standing right next to him, commenting, "You're an interesting one." Suho couldn't even see him move. He instinctively reached for his sword, but Hajin's voice rang out, telling him to focus. Suho blinked and realized that the boss had never moved from the throne. It had all been an illusion caused by the boss's overwhelming aura. The Hajin asked, "Are you ready?" Suho, feeling excited, knew that the real battle had finally begun. Suho, who had momentarily lost his confidence, regained it quickly when he saw his opponent was a swordsman. His talent as a future sword saint, the one who would stand at the peak of all swordsmen, surged within him. Hajin, knowing the nature of this boss from the original story, warned Suho, "The boss isn't the real body, it's the sword itself. The voice is coming from the sword, and that body is just a corpse." In the original story, Suho learned this after fighting for a while, but they didn't have time for that now. Hajin continued he didn't need to target its body, just go for the sword, and he'll cover him. Suddenly, the boss was behind them mid-attack. Suho moved to block, but a cloud of dust obscured the scene. When it cleared, Suho had successfully blocked the attack, and the 2 exchanged blows, each strike forcing the other back. Suho charged forward, and though the boss was prepared, Suho jumped and delivered a powerful strike. However, the boss barely budged. Suho struck again, this time aiming for the sword, but to his surprise, the boss blocked the blow with his bare hand. The boss smirked. "You're strong. I'll take your body once I'm done with you." Suho struggled to pull his sword free, but the boss held it tight. Just as the boss was about to attack, Hajin fired a bullet, knocking the sword aside and saving Suho. Hajin realized the boss was baiting them into attacking his body from the start. Suho said they need to keep this new information in mind, as the boss laughed maniacally, delighted that he had finally found a body worth possessing. Regenerating his hand, the boss eagerly awaited Suho's next move. The 2 clashed again, the pressure from their strikes intense. Suho's strength was incredible, and Hajin knew that while Suho could defeat the boss, they didn't have much time. Hajin couldn't use a shotgun since it might hit Suho, and using a sniper rifle at this range would be ineffective. Despite the odds, they held their ground. The boss was astounded. He was being pushed back by a kid, and Suho's sword wasn't even worn out. Frustrated, he questioned the golden aura surrounding Suho's blade. He pushed Suho back, But instead of feeling defeated, Suho became more excited. The more he fought, the more confident he became. He knew he could win. After all, he had Hajin, a reliable ally, covering him. Suddenly, Suho saw an opening. With a swift strike, he knocked the boss's sword out of his hand, causing it to shatter. The boss's body began to disintegrate. They had defeated the monster. But instead of a grand reward, all they found was a tree branch. Suho, shocked and disappointed, stared at the branch in disbelief. Just then, two demonic humans appeared. They asked Hajin and Suho what they were doing there. One of them, named James, mentioned that their guild, the Masked Demon Master, had already filed a request to raid this dungeon. Hajin quickly explained they're cube cadets. They didn't know anything about a raid. James eyed them suspiciously. Asked, "What did you do here?" Hajin answered, "We just defeated some monsters." James asked, his tone growing more hostile. "What was the reward?" Hajin replied calmly, "We didn't get anything." James contacted his guild leader and explained the situation. After a brief conversation, the guild leader gave the order. Kill them. The demonic humans immediately activated their powers and created a barrier, separating Hajin and Suho. The second demonic human, Johand, looked disappointed as he faced Hajin. He sighed and muttered, "Why does he always get the weaker one?" Hajin, unfazed, asked, "Why go this far to deal with mere cadets?" Johand didn't answer, but instead activated his mana. The gap between their power levels was too large, but Hajin didn't seem hopeless. He began pulling something out of his pocket, causing Johand to tense up. But to Johan's surprise, Hajin pulled out a small rock. Johand burst out laughing. "A rock? Is that all you've got?" Hajin smiled calmly. "This is more than enough to deal with someone like you." Infuriated, Johand scanned Hajin's mana and sensed it was weak. Wondered where's all this confidence coming from. Hajin threw the rock, and Johand dodged it easily, but didn't notice the thin line of ether attached to it. As Hajin pulled the string back with lightning speed, the rock struck Johan's head, knocking him to the floor. Johand was momentarily stunned, only because he had let his guard down. Hajin quickly pulled out his gun. Knowing demonic humans heal quickly, he didn't have much time. He fired a bullet, but it wasn't strong enough to penetrate Johan's head. Johand groaned as he woke up, angrier than ever. He released a powerful burst of mana, sending Hajin crashing into the wall. Coughing up blood, but Johand was now transforming into a second phase, demonification. Meanwhile, Suho was facing James on the other side of the barrier. No sound from the outside could reach him. There was no choice but to fight. James recognized Suho immediately. The #1 cadet of Cube, Kim Suho, sneered. He thought he would have been useful if he could have recruited him, but it was too bad. Without warning, James rushed forward, aiming for Suho's face, but Suho swiftly countered. James vanished and reappeared behind him. He was fast, too fast. Suho managed to block the strike, but was struggling to keep up. Still, he found an opening and launched a counterattack, barely missing James. While James wasn't as strong as the dungeon boss they had just fought, he was incredibly quick. Suho briefly wondered if only Hajin were here, but he quickly pushed the thought aside. This was his fight. He had talked big about raiding the dungeon alone, and now was the time to prove himself. Despite his inexperience, his talent as the Sword Saint meant he had the potential to defeat any swordsman. He just needed to give it his all. Summoning a golden aura of mana, Suho prepared himself. James was shocked to see the power Suho wielded. James muttered to himself, this kid's not just an average cube cadet. Realizing he needed to finish this quickly, Suho, however, felt something strange. It was the same feeling he had when he first discovered the dungeon, as if something was calling out to him. It was the branch left behind by the boss monster. Meanwhile, on Hajin's side, things were dire. Johand, now fully in his demonification form, loomed over him. Hajin knew he was done for. There was no chance of winning, and escaping was impossible. Johand advanced, ready to finish him off. Hajin closed his eyes, preparing for the worst. But when he opened them, he saw something massive and bleeding in front of him. A large object had pierced through Johand, killing him. Stunned, Hajin looked up to see the captain of the chameleon troop standing before him. Hajin stammered, bewildered, wondering what she was doing here. The captain approached him, her expression unreadable. Hajin said, "It seems we keep running into each other." Still in shock, she replied calmly, "That's because I've been watching you." Confused, Hajin asked, What do you mean? Before she could answer, a ghoul suddenly attacked her from behind. Without even turning around, the captain swiftly eliminated the threat with a flick of her hand. She turned back to Hajin. She said, I've been wanting to talk to you about something. Stepping closer, she leaned in and whispered something in his ear, leaving Hajin even more puzzled than before. Hajin was confused, but then he remembered this part of the novel. It was a crucial event in Shin Jong-hak's story, but because of Hajin's actions, everything had changed. He wondered if this would affect the original plot even more. As the barrier between them started to come down, the captain's time was up. She told Hajin to think carefully about her offer and then disappeared. Suho came running over, worried. Asked, are you okay? Hajin nodded. And asked, did you beat him? Suho said, I did. The demonic human he was fighting was still here, which means he fainted. Suho said they need to report this to the association. But Hajin shook his head, telling him there's no proof. Plus, they entered the dungeon without reporting it, so they get punished too. Besides, Hajin had put all his savings into Masked Demon Master's shares. Suho asked Hajin what happened to the person that he was fighting. Hajin replied casually, he ran away. After they left the dungeon, Suho showed Hajin a branch. He said this isn't just any ordinary stick. Hajin had completely forgotten about the branch. Suho continued, when he was fighting, he felt something. This branch was calling out to him. He hesitated, realizing how strange it sounded, and apologized, thinking it probably didn't make sense. But Hajin nodded, telling him he got it. Hajin told him he realized when he first saw it that this might be a special item. He examined it closely, asking, have you heard of Mistiltine? In Norse mythology, it's a legendary weapon linked to the death of Baldur, the god of light. It's known as the Godslayer's stick. Suho's eyes widened. A legendary weapon? Hajin said, yeah, but a divine weapon needs to be awakened before it shows its true power. Suho looked at the shabby branch in disbelief. Does it need to be awakened? At first it looks too ordinary for a dungeon reward. Hajin pointed out, he fought the boss and demonic humans, even though the stick hasn't awakened yet. Suho wondered how to awaken it. Hajin then asked Suho to hand him the branch. He pulled something out of his pocket, and Suho was astonished. It was a sapling dust. Suho recognized it immediately as extremely precious. In the original novel, Kim Suho possessed this sapling dust. But since Hajin had worked hard to get it himself, he decided to show off a little. He thought for a moment about what to say, thinking of a way to make him a little more grateful. Hajin said casually, it's a relic from my parents. Suho was taken aback. The atmosphere suddenly grew heavy, and Suho felt a wave of sadness for Hajin. Sensing the shift, Hajin quickly added, I'm just kidding. But this item is important to me. Hajin explained, this powder increases the potential of both people and items. When he'll sprinkle this on Mistiltine, it'll awaken its true form. Suho was hesitant. Asked, are you sure? This dust seems really valuable. Hajin sighed, frustrated by Suho's reluctance. Of course it's important, but when else will they get a mythical item like this? Now's the time to use it. Despite Hajin's reassurance, Suho still hesitated. Hajin said, shut up and take it already, exasperated. Suho, moved by Hajin's generosity. Hajin sprinkled the sapling dust on Mistiltine, and immediately, the branch began to change. Though the transformation wasn't drastic, the branch grew slightly larger, and small leaves began sprouting at the ends. It was Mistiltine's first awakening. In time, as Suho developed, the branch would transform into a sword capable of destroying enemies. Afterward, Hajin stood up and said, as promised, if Suho takes the branch, he'll take the leaves. Walking back home together, Suho looked doubtful. Asked again, are you sure it's okay for me to take the branch? Hajin sighed. He told him 1,000 times it's fine. Why would he want a weapon for close combat? The Mistiltine leaf, a legendary item, had finally awakened. If boiled and consumed, it would enhance the body, and if grinds down, it can be made into a weapon. It would create something incredibly powerful. As Hajin pondered what to do with the leaf, he suddenly tripped over a tree root. Wincing in pain, he felt a sense of déjà vu. It was as if he had experienced this exact situation before. Hearing him yelp, Suho turned and asked what happened. Hajin replied, it's nothing. Brushing it off, he continued walking home, humming a song. He was in a good mood, having received an unexpected and valuable item. Meanwhile, back inside the dungeon, Jane was watching a recording of Hajin's fight. As she observed Hajin throwing the rock, she was impressed. Even with someone's full magical power, it's not easy to create that kind of force using a whip. She mused. But more than that, what struck her most was his decisiveness. At that moment, Hajin didn't know his opponent was a demonic human, yet he chose to kill him without hesitation. She paused the recording and turned to the captain. Said you were right. Hajin has real potential. The captain nodded and told her they're leaving now. Jane said I wanted to see more, especially the demonification. The captain grimaced. Told her she doesn't want to, it's disgusting. Back in Hajin's dorm, Hajin was completely exhausted. Evan Gal, awake. He picked her up gently, and he whispered to her go back to sleep. He walked over to the window and gazed out at the moon. Suho told Hajin to return to his dorm. Hajin asked, where is he going? Since he's close to his house, he thought he would visit his family. Before leaving, he sincerely thanked Hajin again. Hajin was touched by Suho's gratitude, more than he'd expected. Kim Suho was the true protagonist of this world. He never compromised, never burned himself out, and always walked the path of righteousness. In a world full of chaos, someone like him shouldn't exist, but Hajin had created Suho with the hope that such a person could be real. Suho, whose name meant protector, was the world's true savior. And in this world, he was someone Hajin can trust more than anyone.